Recently, Nissan, well, their debt got downgraded to junk, so it's now much harder for Nissan to get loans. But at the same time, it's in a bit of trouble because in China, demand for Nissan vehicles, which is Nissan's most important car market in the world, has gone down. So what did Nissan do? They went and said, well, we have all these factories in China. We're not selling enough cars. What about we just sell the cars we make in China because they're cheaper to make in China than Japan? Just keep making them in China, slow down production in Japan, and send those cars from China to current markets where we sell Japanese cars. We can sell them at a bigger profit margin. But the interesting thing is, no one really thought that this would happen to Japan. Now, for example, Nissan and Honda are both going to sell cars made in China, in Japan. So basically, Japanese buyers will have a choice. Would you like to buy a Chinese-made car? With the knowledge that China has just surpassed Japan as the #1 global exporter of cars, and that they'll be helping the Chinese continue to take away the Japanese automotive industry. Bit of an interesting conundrum for them here. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. It's great to see you. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Sam Evans. You're watching the Electric Viking, and it's been a very interesting week here. But I've got to say, first of all, thank you to our Patreon supporters. Really appreciate what you do. If you can join us on Patreon, it'd be amazing. Even a small amount would be awesome. I'll put a link in the description below. Also, YouTube members, great to have you as well. You can see some of our videos in advance if you become a YouTube member. Honda has just started exporting Chinese-made vehicles to Japan as part of efforts to improve factory utilization at its Chinese operations. So this is the big problem here. If you don't make enough vehicles in the factory, basically if the factory is working at well below its intended output, the cars that factory makes are much more expensive to make. You've still got to pay the same salaries to your staff. That's the biggest cost of a factory. And yet you're producing much fewer vehicles. So Honda is basically saying, well, we've cut production at other factories where we pay more money to make these cars, such as Japan, and we'll simply sell Chinese-made vehicles in Japan. But they're kind of hurting their own automotive industry and themselves as a result. An ocean liner carrying a batch of Odysseys or Honda Odysseys has set sail for Japan from a port in South China's Guangdong province on the 23rd of September, Honda's China office said this week. I don't believe Japanese authorities or politicians will be very happy about this. The Odyssey is built at a Guangdong-based plant operated by Honda's joint venture with state-owned Chinese automaker GAC Motor, who also have the mega EV company Aeon, fastest growing electric car company in the world. The office said that it hasn't divulged the number of vehicles that were being shipped over, but if you think about it, this is a joint venture between Honda and the Chinese government. So Japanese citizens will be buying vehicles made in China because Chinese don't want them anymore. That's the primary reason, that are made essentially by the Chinese government. Anyway, with its local sales continuing to shrink in China, Honda has started exporting vehicles to Europe from a partnership with GAC earlier this year. So the same thing's happening to Europe. Europe and Japan are losing a certain percentage of their manufacturing because companies are saying, well, we want to make more profits, we're losing sales, so let's just ship out cars made in China rather than continue to make them in Europe and Japan, where they're much more expensive to manufacture. By the end of May, Honda had shipped more than 2,500 ZR-V hybrid crossovers to Europe from China, which were obviously made by their joint venture with the Chinese government. In China, Honda runs a partnership with state-owned Dongfeng Motor Company as well. So Honda's two big joint venture partnerships in China are both with the government, the sort of state-owned government. It doesn't really make any difference here. Basically, it's the Chinese government here that Honda has partnered with to make their vehicles in China. In the first 8 months, aggregate sales of the two joint ventures for Honda fell by 25% versus a year earlier to 721,639,000. So you can see here, they're still selling a hell of a lot of cars in China, but they're going to lose a lot of those sales because they don't really make any compelling EVs in China. The Chinese don't really want Honda-made EVs because they don't think that they're all that good. The Chinese now think their own brands that make EVs are making better EVs than companies like Honda, for example. And why would they pay more for a Honda-made EV when they know it's just made by a joint venture with the state-owned companies? So anyway, this is a very challenging situation here for Japanese automakers. Their sales continue to shrink in China, and they're having to resort to actions like this, which will be very politically difficult to digest in places like Japan and Europe, where they're panicking about the rise of Chinese manufacturing in the automotive industry. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching.